What's going on, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Expected Bets 4. On today's episode, we'll be previewing a few games for December 14th. Before we get into that, let's bring in the rest of the crew. Betzky, how we doing?
Doing good out here. Just saw that Dream Scenario movie with Nick Cage last night. It was pretty fun. Check out the trailer if you haven't seen it. It's like he's a random guy. He's like a balding professor, and he just starts appearing in all these random people's dreams, and they start to recognize him. It's so cool.
It could be a Nick Cage podcast at this rate. You know, he's got a few good ones, so maybe we'll break down a few of his movies next episode. Franco, how we doing out there in Philly?
Yeah.
Man. Good, man. Getting beaten down by work, but you know, it's nice talking about some Nick Cage right now. So,
yeah.
All right. Before we get into the 6 games we'll preview on Thursday, let's start a new segment here. We're going to go over our 3 stars of the week. So the 3 stars is going to be basically anything good that happened, whether it was a bet that kind of covered, was easy, or just kind of a team or player that we're going to highlight. Opposite of that, we're going to go into the penalty box of players, teams, or bets that were just kind of not on our side for the week here. So we'll start with our 3 stars here. Betzky, who is your first star of the week here?
I gotta go with Crosby. He's been getting that 3.5 line like 4 or 5 times in a row. There's been so many games where it doesn't feel like he's going to get it too. Like he'll come off the first period with 0 shots, and then he still just manages to find a way. So this entire season, he's just been a wagon. I mean, it feels like a cheat code to drop him down to 3 for like parlay pieces, and now you're getting nice value on 3.5. I mean, I think he has a point in every single game, just about, not every single game, but just about like maybe 80-ish% of them. He's a wagon this year. Too bad the team isn't doing as good as he is, but
yeah. Franco, who's your star of the week?
I'm gonna go with the Kings in general, I guess. Really them on the road. I mean, they've been so good. 11-1 on the road in general. Trevor Moore's been a guy I've been loving to just cruise with. I mean, it doesn't even matter. Shots on goal, point prop. He's just been awesome on the road. So that team is just you don't have to think about it. Just click bet and collect your money at the end of the game.
Yeah, agreed. My first star going to be a little bit off the board here. So earlier in one of our episodes where we did the season previews, I gave out the Sharks over 65.5 points. Safe to say it wasn't a fun first few weeks for me, especially kind of watching them lose all those games. However, this team has turned it around. Kind of as they're in their last 11, I believe they have points in 9 of them, which is insane. Coming off, and they're finding different ways to win too, which is hysterical too. So 2-1 win against Winnipeg. Then they just boat race Detroit, making a miraculous comeback, 6-5, down 4-0. I mean, listen, this is what I saw on this team all the way. We got 21 points so far through 29 games. So this team's going to get hot. We're going to cash that bet. I'm excited for this team. And it's every time I open up the sports book, it's just Kings over 65.5 points. And I can't say it was fun for a while. And now this team is starting to pull through. So that's that's my star of the week. Opposite of that, we'll start with you here, Franco. Who are you putting in the penalty box this week?
All right, I'm shifting off of what I said before with the show here. Evan Rodriguez, man. I was so high on him the other day, and he had a shot blocked in the first 35 seconds of the game. So, like, I was like, here we go. He's going for it right off the bat. Gets a shot attempt, gets blocked. And then he just doesn't get there, man. I mean, it was kind of disappointing. The team in general looked bad, I would say, for a lot of that game, kind of just not getting pucks on net. So, yeah, disappointing for me. I really thought he was going to be a spiteful human, and he just was not in that game. So, yeah, he is in the penalty box for me.
Betzky, who are you putting in the penalty box this week?
Sebastian Aho has been an asshole to me. God. did a collab with Props Kitchen, and it was down to the last leg, like a plus 1,200 parlay that had like plus money shots with Ryan O'Reilly and Lafreniere, and they both hit, and we get down to the last leg, and it's Aho, and he gets the 2 and he can't get past. And then the night before that, or the game before that, I had him in like our shots on goal cheat sheet. And again, the 2 times in a row, he was the last leg, and he couldn't do it for me. And right before that, he had just crazy volume. I think he had like 4 shots on goal, 5 shots on goal, 4, 3, and was like at 7 attempts per game. That was an ugly road trip for Carolina, and they are still on it, which is crazy too. But of course, he bounced back last night against the Sens, so great.
Yeah, I'm gonna put Pierre Engvall in the penalty box for me too. We gave out that those picks. We went 2 for 1, which is pretty solid there. We won't bring up Matt Duchene. He's a spiteful human being, first of all, which we'll get to in a second. But Engvall hitting 4 of his last 5, 6 of his last 7 overall. And then just came up short against his former team. Only 1 shot on goal too. And we talked about it too with the 1.5 shots on goal lines. They always seem to be the sweatiest, regardless of how easy you think it is. They're 3 shot attempts. And if you watch that game, you can just question a few of those attempts of just what he was even thinking of shooting it wide, taking it up the boards, and then going back to pretty much the top of the blue line and just firing one from about 30 feet out, just hoping he hits the net there. So I'm going to put him in the penalty box. But yeah, that's about it. Any notable mentions on either side of those?
I mean, Tavares, man, that 1,000th career point couldn't have come at any better of a time, right? I mean, that was crazy. He was the opposite of Engvall in that game. He was determined. He wanted that game. So it's funny how they lost immediately in overtime, but pretty impressive to tie it with 5 seconds or whatever it was left. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, them showing that graphic on the Jumbotron and just the mixed reactions of the fans too, of half boos and then maybe like a slow clap for a few of the other ones. That was always pretty funny to watch.
I mean, he suffered through some bad teams with them. So
yeah,
I mean, can they really blame him that he wanted to leave after all that time?
No. Once that picture came out too of him in the Toronto Maple Leafs sheets. That was kind of the icing on the cake there too, which was pretty funny. But all right, let's get into tomorrow's games. We got 6 that we're going to go over here. We'll start with Washington and Philly here. Washington on a 2-game win streak kind of took down the Rangers, who have been reeling a little bit as of late. I thought they'd bounce back after that Ottawa game. They have not. They also beat Chicago 4-2. Philly also kind of on a hot streak here, won 4 of its last 6 games here, obviously coming off a loss to Nashville. Carter Hart has been pretty phenomenal for Philly in his last 3, 2, 1-1 goals against. Charlie Lindgren, if you were to say he would be the 4th best goalie in terms of goals saved above expected 30 games into the season, I wouldn't have believed you. No. I'll just put it that way here. Interesting enough, Washington's offense has been pretty solid. So they rank 30th in goals for on the season here, but they've scored 4 goals in each of their last 3 games, which should be an interesting matchup given how well Philly's played defensively. So I'll start with you here, Franco. Philly's your team. Who do you like in this matchup?
So probably going to be tough to pick a side here. Philly's a little bit better on the road than they are at home. They're kind of even, I think, 6-6 at home, 9-4-2 on the road. So I'd probably lean their direction just because of how they've been playing. But like you said, Washington has looked good as well. Kind of turn around. They weren't – I would say that they were pretty bad to start the year. I think most people were fading them pretty easily. And
yeah.
They had like those. They look like they had old legs, pretty much is what I would say. But yeah, I mean, they look revitalized and look a lot better. So, not sure about side there. So I'm going to look at props. Atkinson's been a favorite of mine all year at home. Usually he's pretty bettable, surprisingly, because he always seems to fail on the road as well. So I know he hit 2 nights ago, so maybe it won't be as good. But usually he's anywhere from -120 to -135, which I'm fine with laying a -135, especially with how good he's been at home. So we'll see where his line is. Washington is ranked kind of towards the middle top-ish, I think 11th or 12th or something like that in shots against. So, and Philly surprisingly is 7th in shots for. I mean, who the hell had that on their bingo sheet to start the season? So,
and on top of it, they're like the first in the past 20 days or something.
yeah.
So like as of recent, they're like the top team.
It's crazy. I mean, they were last year. They were towards the bottom. I remember numerous games where they'd have like 24 shots, 22 shots, and it'd just be ugly. So, I mean, they're a little bit more exciting, I guess, than they were last year. We'll see what happens when all's said and done. I think we all can kind of agree that the Devils and Penguins are probably going to move up, and Carolina for that matter. But yeah, I like Atkinson here probably, and on the Caps side, Anthony Mantha has been pretty hot recently. He's got 3 points in 3 games, 2 goals, 1 assist, and a decent history against Philly, 8 points in 8 games against them. So usually his props pretty bettable as well. So that's probably where I'd be looking if I'm trying to back Washington props.
Yeah, in terms of home dogs for Phillies too, you mentioned shots on goal. I mean, Tippett's hitting 5 of his last 6 at home, and even Walker is 4 of his last 5 at home. So those are your home dogs there as well. Betzky, who do you like in this matchup here?
Yeah, I'm going to go right to Owen Tippett. At this point, the volume's crazy. Last season, I think he was more of a home dog, period. And at the start of the season, he was more on the home side of those splits, but now it's anywhere. It's insane. So that's going to be one I'm probably going to ride for a little bit. At 2.5, you'll probably have to use it as more of a parlay piece. I can't imagine it'll be higher than like -140 or so. But if you can get it at 3.5, I don't mind it there. Washington's a little tough on shots, but they're not necessarily like a brick wall or anything. So I'm not too scared of it. And again, when the guy's volume is that high, I don't put too much factor into shots allowed versus shots for. And again, Philly is the team shooting the most right now. So if they keep that up, no reason to not kind of turn in that direction. Yeah. I don't really have anyone on the Washington side. This is a team that's kind of stumped me. I had Strome against Chicago.
I have 2 names for you. Yeah, Strome and even Wilson. Wilson's been pretty good with the shots on goal as of late, which I didn't see coming at all.
Yeah. Ovi's been cold. Holy cow.
Yeah. The other thing, too, for Washington, they give up the 3rd most shots on goal to right wingers, which fits in kind of that Walker narrative, and then Tippett to 7th most shots on goal for D. So those are kind of the 2 you're going to highlight. Those are the 2 that I really like in this matchup, especially. Even a few other props, too, for points. Couturier has been pretty solid. Forrester and Konechny as well. So those are 3 other names that I'd written down in this matchup. But you're right. In terms of a side total, it's kind of tough. I mean, Philly -135. Washington, if they were still kind of streaky like they were in the beginning of the season, I'd take every opportunity to fade them. But this one seems a little bit tougher.
Yeah, maybe the under is the way to go here.
Agreed.
Yeah, and these teams usually hate each other too, so they're usually pretty rough games, really, when it comes down to it. So we'll see what happens there.
Moving along here, we have Carolina traveling to Detroit. Detroit, the home dog here, +124. Carolina -148. Over under sit at 6.5 here, split both ways. Another really interesting matchup. So Carolina obviously coming off a win against Ottawa, 4-1, snapped a 4-game losing streak. Betzky had touched on this before, but they are in a rough period right now. Detroit defeated St. Louis in their last game. Again, stopped a 3-game losing streak for them. So both these teams are kind of on the downslide here. Larkin out, Perron suspended, Svechnikov again out as well. So some pretty key injuries and suspensions for both sides here. Detroit's goaltending has been bad as of late. They've kind of gone with a 3-man rotation here in each of the last start for each of them. So Husso, Reimer, and Leon, all 4 goals against in each of their last starts. So you really don't know who's going to get the nod for them unless they just keep rotating and hope one of them can find a path here. And again, just looking at this, Carolina 13th in goals for, but they haven't really been scoring a ton as of late. If Carolina was hotter, I think the over would be kind of be the play here, but a little bit hesitant there. Betzky, any props or sides in this one?
Carolina team total may be interesting, even at 3.5. It may not even matter who plays in that, but that loss to Larkin is going to be tough on Detroit, I think. Now, the two guys that get kind of elevated here are DeBrincat and Kane. Kane failed me 2 nights ago, and when he couldn't get his shots on goal prop against Dallas, but he's hit 3 out of those 4 games he played. His first 2 games, he had 8 shot attempts in each. Just had a really bad game against Dallas. Dallas really just kind of frustrated the Red Wings all night. And then yesterday was a big kind of run and gun game, and both him and DeBrincat hit their shots. Sprong's been pretty good lately, but the guy who's been really impressing me is Robbie Fabry. I've always liked this kid since he was on St. Louis Blues. He's getting a little bit more time in the top 6. He was hanging out with Larkin and Raymond right when Kane started playing. But now it's Kopp up on the top line with them too, with Raymond and Fabry. But
Yeah,
either
Kopp,
way,
Raymond, Fabry, yeah.
It seems like he's really developing some chemistry on that top line. He was kind of a streaky point and shooter previously in previous seasons. Nice kind of point piece of ride right now. Good value. I mean, you can usually get it around plus 105 to maybe minus 110 at worst. So that's an area I like a lot. I know Aho's in the sin bin for me, but he just had a really nice game. Maybe time to kind of just jump right back on the wagon after he missed 2 games and see if he can kind of get a streak going. Those Carolina lines just don't look as good without Shevnikov, though.
No.
It's interesting how much these teams can kind of look either extremely strong or you lose a key piece and the wind goes right out the sails. So I don't know. They usually find a way to make things work. But yeah, I think Fabry point may be my favorite. Maybe Kane shots if you can get a nice price on that. But we know Carolina's good against shots on goal too.
Yeah, I like the Kane look, especially. He's been much better at home, even in the few games he's played for Detroit too. He's really struggled on the road. I think he went 1 shot on goal on 1 attempt in one of those matchups, which was bad. Yeah. Franco, any looks in Carolina, Detroit?
Yeah, I got a couple. Start on the Carolina side. Michael Bunting. Kind of warming back up a little bit, I guess. 2 points in his last 3, which is okay, whatever. But historically against Detroit, 10 points in 7 games. 5 goals, 5 assists. So, and averages 3.5 shots a game in those 7 games. So clearly he's feels a little something about playing against Detroit. I don't know why, but yeah, I don't mind that. Don't love it though. Carolina on the road in general, it seems to be worse, I guess, this year. 7-10 as opposed to 8-2 and 1 on home ice. So don't really want to back that Carolina side in general. But on the Detroit side, I'm looking at Berggren. 2 games up so far, 2 goals. So I don't see why you wouldn't ride the kid. I mean, he had some streaks last year where he looked pretty damn good and was getting some playing time, and then just kept kind of falling out of favor. I mean, I didn't watch enough Detroit games to know the reason for it. I mean, I don't know if he just doesn't back check or whatever the case is, but he seems to be a pretty decent goal scorer for them when he plays and gets minutes. So with Larkin out and Perron out, I guess still for a little bit of time. I think he's got like 4 more games left, right? So
December 22nd.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna get some time, to showcase himself. And I saw him being mentioned in trade rumors as well. So this is literally his moment, right? Like if you want to get traded, like show us what you got, kid. So yeah, I mean you're probably gonna get a pretty nice number on his goal score prop as well. So I don't mind sprinkling that.
Yeah, the only props I had in this one was obviously DeBrincat points. He's been pretty solid as of late. Sider over shots on goals and Jacob Slavin shots on goals. Those are the 2 other props that I had circled in this one, but it's hard not to back Detroit at home, like you said, Franco, here in this spot, kind of both teams reeling. Carolina's road record is a little bit cause for concern, though, like you had mentioned. So I do like that look. The over 2 only being at -110 is a little bit questionable as well, given how bad Detroit's goaltending has been as of late and how many goals they've allowed. So I was a little concerned at that. Curious to see where that line moves before puck drop. Next game up, we have Calgary at Minnesota here. Calgary is the road dog here, +120. Minnesota -142 on the money line. Over under set at 6, -120 to the over here. Calgary has allowed a ton of goals as of late, 5-6, 4-2, 5-4. Minnesota, pretty decent at home. Kind of your average 5-4-2 here. Calgary's lost 5 of their last 6 games. Minnesota, opposite that, has won 5 of their last 7 games here. So interesting line. Hard not to just kind of immediately click Minnesota in this matchup. But I'll start with you here, Betzky. Any looks in this one?
Yeah, definitely like Minnesota as far as the side goes, and probably will lean the over for the total. Or Minnesota team total again, too. They've looked great with the coaching change, and it seems like Eriksson Ek is a coach's little darling right now. He's doing everything right. His shots on goal prop has been flying
phenomenal.
I mean, I think he's hit 3 in like 10 games in a row, and then 3.5. He's a little bit more spotty, but he has a good history against Calgary on top of it. So give me that 3.5 line for Eriksson Ek. And as long as Rossi's still on that top line, I don't mind writing that point. He's been kind of hitting every other game or so, but again, if you're targeting teams that give up a lot of goals, that's a nice spot to get a point prop. That's probably going to be around that -105 to even like +105 territory. So good value there.
Yeah, I like Eriksson Ek shots on goal. I had that circled too. Over in 6 of his last 10 here in his point. He's hit in 7 of his last 10 as well, which has been pretty solid. Boldy, Zuccarello again for points on that look as well. Calgary, I don't mind a few props. I mean, Anderson's been pretty solid in terms of points. Mangiapane and Sharangovich, again, shots on goal. Don't know what the odds are going to be on that, though. They're usually a little pretty juiced. So that's kind of what I had here. Franco, any looks for you in this matchup?
Yeah, like the Sharangovich call, like the Boldy call, like the Eriksson Ek call. I mean, don't want to rehash too much, but I think Eriksson Ek is a hell of a player just in general. I think he does like you said, everything right. He can play defensive. He can get in front of the net. He can take a beating. He's a great all around player. So. It looks like they did shift lines a little bit. I don't know if that was the last game that was the first time they did this, but Eriksson Ek, Boldy, and Kaprizov was the top line. So it's Rossi, Zuccarello, and Johansson. So just something to note there.
And honestly, I'm looking at it now too. I almost like Rossi and Zook on the second line, where they may be able to get a little bit better matches anyways. I think that
exactly
makes more sense. So,
and those two are playmakers and passers to go with Rossi. So, I mean, that might be even better for him in general. So I like that. But Boldy's been red hot, man. I mean, it seems like since the coaching change, he's just like, I think I said it last week when we talked about it. He looks like a revitalized player. He was great last year. Consistently like a -170 to -190 point prop type player. And pretty sure he's still bettable at this point for a point. So if that's the case, grab that for sure. Yeah, I like that. I like the Hartman or the Eriksson Ek shots as well. Not Hartman, definitely not that. I'll probably go with Sharangovich goal. I mean, 4 goals, right? And it's Sharangovich goal, 4 goals in his last 3. So playing with confidence, firing the puck. Why the hell not, right? Just keep riding it.
Yeah, so 2 things going off that for Eriksson Ek. He's hitting 5 of his last 6 games for his shots on goal against Calgary, which is pretty good line there too. And then even Boldy point in his last game against Calgary, he had 2 goals and 1 assist. So clearly some good history for both those players there in this matchup. Next game up, we have Ottawa traveling to St. Louis here. Ottawa -110, St. Louis -110. Split both ways here. Ottawa's been pretty up and down as of late, 5-5 in their last 10. St. Louis has lost their last 4 games, 6-3, 5-6 goals against here. The over at 6.5, -130, kind of makes sense in this one too, given Ottawa's offensive prowess here. The one thing that I found interesting too is Ottawa's only played 6 games on the road this year.
I know, it's nuts.
Crazy.
It's really hard to kind of gauge like what type of team they are on the road because of that. And then, you know, one of those games was in Europe.
Yep.
So it's like you almost need to throw that out the window too, because that was a real weird situation and not like a normal, you know, road trip or anything. So I mean, have they even played more than 3 games on the road on a single like trip? I don't.
Yeah, that's
think so.
bizarre. 6 games is so minimal. Like,
And
Yeah.
and you're talking 5 if you take away that one. So
Yeah.
I mean, they're 11-12. You figured you kind of have a home stretch to start the season. You need to kind of accumulate as many points as you can, and they have not done that. They've done the exact opposite of that. So something to watch out too. Kind of middle of the season at the end, just if Ottawa's on kind of just back-to-back kind of 3-4 game road trips here, should be some interesting targets. I don't mind the over in this one too, and kind of stick each side. I mean, like you said, Ottawa's sample size is 5 games in terms of what they can do on the road here. So not a lot. I'll start with you here, Betzky. I have a few looks, but I'm curious to see what you have in this game.
Yeah, well, St. Louis is allowing, I think, the most shots on goal in the past 20 days. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Most goals against. That's right. They are the 8th most in shots against. Ottawa, pretty much just about everybody outside of Stützle hit their lines last night. So Brady, Norris, Chikrin did not either, I guess. Giroux, Tarasenko. Did I miss anyone? Giroux, Tarasenko, Stützle does not. Brady. Anyways, Batherson hit. Yep. So that top 6, any of those forwards are kind of nice looks. Drew's obviously a little bit more dicey. I don't know if I rely on him too much for shots. Unless it's against the correct opponents. But I probably will just kind of see which one feels right. I know Brady's got connections to St. Louis because of his dad. I don't know if there's really any history there or anything, but this could be a nice back and forth game. And I do believe Ottawa shoots a bit more on the road than even at home, but excuse me, hard to say with only 5 games.
Yeah, Franco, any looks here?
you guys forgot the most important thing. Berube got fired.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, do you just automatically bet St. Louis here? I mean, they are at home. It's not like Ottawa is this team coming in that's great or anything like that. It's not like we're fading, a top 10 side here. So, I don't know. I think you just got to take and close your eyes and hope for the best there. So I'll probably ride that just because it just always seems to be. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. I mean, you can be the worst team in the league, and when you make a coaching change, I mean, you got to impress the new boss, right? So it seems like
you saw with Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, and they hired literally like the coach that nobody would be happy about signing. So, so I mean, that's where I probably look. Buchnevich assist looks pretty good. His history looks decent against them, and his recent form's okay. And he's just always a guy that is typically involved. So if they are going to be scoring, that's either him or Thomas would be who I'd be looking at there. Same thing, like you said, the Ottawa shots for looks pretty good in general, and St. Louis does give up a ton of shots. So probably tread a little lightly there with the fact that I think that we'll get a decent effort out of St. Louis. So, maybe more blocks happening there. You can look at those block shot props, maybe even if you're feeling a little saucy, and probably just stay off that Ottawa side in general. I don't want to really be caught in a situation where it's like a 4-1 St. Louis and you're hoping that you got that 1 point from whoever it was.
Yeah. Who's taking over for St. Louis?
Drew Bannister.
Was he just an assistant coach, or
I think so?
the new head coach?
I think he's interim.
Okay, these situations are always a little bit weird too, though, because you're not necessarily impressing the new guy quite yet. So unless they don't make a decision this year, this game's gonna be kind of tricky.
Yeah, I mean, two guys I had circled too as for shots here was Torrey Krug, hitting 8 of his last 10. He's been he's been phenomenal. And then kind of the new shots on goal darling, Jake Neighbors here, hitting 7 of his last 10, 3 of his last 4. A name you start to see on Twitter a lot more. I've seen people hop on this train pretty heavily. And then other guys, just notable mentions, Justin Falk and Franco's favorite, Kevin Hayes, for his over 1.5 shots on goal line here. Obviously, that line's pretty heavily juiced. That's a parlay piece. But those are the kind of the names I had circled here. Should be an interesting one, like you said, with the coaching change and everything. So I'd probably hop on Krug or Neighbors tomorrow for shots on goal in this matchup. Next game up, we have Tampa Bay at.
Oh, real quick. Sorry, guys. Sorry to cut you off. I know you mentioned Tarasenko, but he does have that revenge angle as well. I didn't think about that. And he's been shooting a ton recently. Yes. So just sorry to cut you off, but that needs to be said.
Has he played against the Blues since the trade?
I believe so, because he had I think he had numbers against them.
With the Rangers?
I guess it was with the Rangers. Yeah. 1 game played, 1 goal, 1 assist, 6 shots.
Woo-hoo.
So yes, please sign me up for all the Tarasenko props. And again, he's another guy that, like, because he's been not that good this year, he's not minus 170, minus 190 anymore for a point.
Yeah,
he's probably close to bettable just for a point.
And that second line's been really good for Ottawa. That moving Stu down to the second line was really kind of the catalyst to get 2 lines going for them. So yeah,
I like that a lot.
Yeah, these lines too. I mean, a few years past, obviously it was at 2.5, and now it's shifted down to that 1.5. So it'll probably be around minus 160, minus 170 tomorrow. But definitely a nice little parlay piece.
Yep, ulted up on FanDuel.
Yeah. Next game up, we got Tampa Bay at Edmonton. Edmonton's been absolutely red hot as of late. Won the last 8 games, 10-2 in their last 10. Only allowed 1 goal in 4 of their last 6 games. And obviously, when you think of Edmonton, you don't think of them for their defensive ability. Stuart Skinner's been phenomenal for them. Edmonton minus 155 on the money line, over under set at 6.5, juice to the over at minus 120 here. Tampa Bay has been starting to get a little bit better, won 3 of their last 5, but if you kind of look at a larger sample size, they are 4-6 in their last 10, which isn't particularly great for this team. They have met once before this season. Tampa Bay won 6-4 back in November here, and in terms of home and away splits, Edmonton's 9-4 and 1 at home. Tampa Bay 5-9-2 on the road here. So looking like an Edmonton in regulation play for me, at least here. I'm curious to see what you have to say, Franco.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you got to keep riding that hot team with Edmonton. It's crazy to turn around, and I mean, you look at the standings, and they're still. It feels like way out of it, but for at least for where we thought they would be. So, still a lot of work to do. They can't let up, So, I don't think this is where they will. It's still a big time opponent in Tampa Bay, and they're going to want to try to prove themselves that they are indeed back. So, like Bouchard props, probably he's been smoking hot, 6 points in his last 3, which is just insane. Probably going to go to Hyman shots. Yeah. I know I figured you guys would be on him as well. Yeah. Decent history against them as well. And, he's just been the guy. I feel like he's the shooter this year. He's
really
up and down. Yeah, like Draisaitl's been like non-existent, right? And
I feel like Draisaitl accidentally texted a group text bashing McDavid and left McDavid on it, and it's just been really awkward since. Or said something bad about McDavid's hot tub.
I don't know if there's a lot of good to say about McDavid's hot tub, but Yeah, I think Hyman's certainly the look here, even over points as well. Obviously, that'll be a parlay piece given the odds. But
Yeah,
any
his
other looks
points
here?
look good. I mean, I guess Cooch probably go back to him. I think he's kind of tailed off a little bit recently, but again, like historically, very good numbers against them, almost averaging 6 shots a game. I mean, that's what you want to see for a guy like Cooch, who you're going to have to be betting over 4.5 anyway, as it is. And Stamkos, actually, I know he's been another guy that's been not the same this year, I guess you'd say. But historically against them, averaging almost 4 shots a game. So I know he hit in the first period last night. I saw him. It was like 3 shots in a row. And I'm like, why can't that happen when I bet a player?
I know.
It just doesn't ever happen. So
specifically him too.
Yeah, I mean, he is probably one of the most frustrating of all because he just has those games. So at least Cooch, you're going to get the volume. So I'd probably lean more his way, but that's where I would be looking on the Tampa Bay side.
Yeah, Sorelli over 1.5 is another one that I'd circled on the Tampa Bay side. But McDavid over 1.5 is hitting 8 of his last 10 here. And then the first game they played this year, he didn't have any points. But if you go back to last year, the 2 times they did play Tampa, he hit in both of those. So 2 of his last 3 versus Tampa. I'll take Betzky. Any looks for you here?
Yeah, I mean, that Mike McDavid 2-point prop right now has been great because you're not going to get it at the price you're getting it at soon. It may even happen tomorrow, but
yeah,
it was plus money a couple days ago. And now it's been hovering around like that minus 130 area where I'll take that. Who cares? Like he has 23, but not counting yesterday. So 25 points now in like 11 games or the past 10 games. Could be even more than that. Cause I think when I pulled this data yesterday, the first of that 10-game grouping they had 0. So it's crazy. What he's doing is just completely putting the team on his shoulders. I mean, Skinner's been great as well, but yeah, give me that until it's like unbettable. And even if it is unbettable tomorrow, I mean, I'm not afraid of putting it in a parlay because Vasilevsky just has not looked right. That Tampa team is struggling to keep pucks out in that. They haven't been the same team as they have been in the past, clearly, and they kind of feel like the Penguins of the past like couple years, where they still got a lot of great older vets. They can still win games. They can outscore you, but they go over quite often.
Yeah, it almost feels like they almost rushed Vasilevsky back a little early
It does.
from that injury, given how bad. I mean, Johansson started off the season, wasn't the greatest, but wasn't the worst by any means, kind of from what we expected. And then he did start to tail off a little bit. So
yeah,
that's interesting. And then to your point of McDavid over 1.5 points being offered at like minus 130, it's just mind boggling because you have guys being offered at that price for 1.5 shots on goal. It like when you truly think about it, it is crazy.
Oh, it's going to be minus 160 by the end of the season. I guarantee it too.
It started the season up at that range. It was like minus 150, minus 160 in good matchups. And honestly, I think it'll probably go back down because that you're looking at a game where he was against Chicago. Like, so minus 130 against Chicago is probably going to be more juiced. I think he'll probably come back down with like the market expectation of Tampa being a good defensive team in general.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So depending on the opponent right now, you may be even getting it at like a very bettable rate unless they just make the adjustment where everybody.
Yeah, eventually they're going to be like, all right, enough of this.
Yeah. But I mean, his Hart awards that yesterday we were talking about, and it's like plus 350. And I mean, at this point, give me it all day because not only is he has a good chance of catching Kucherov for the scoring leader, if he pulls them from literally the bottom of the standings at one point to playoffs, they have the narrative too. So if the league's ever like, we can't just keep on giving this award to McDavid, this is not going to be the year if they make the playoffs. No, and he gets in the top 3 for scoring leaders, if not the top.
After being hurt for how many games,
Yeah, and he has the narrative. Last year, he just had an insane amount of points and he couldn't look away. But
And honestly, like the teams ahead of them right now, I mean, besides, I think we can agree Vegas is just damn good. But I mean, Vancouver kind of seems to be falling off a little bit, maybe.
A little bit. They're still hanging
in
there.
I mean, they're still decent, but I mean, and the Kings goaltending is going to be an issue at some point. I don't see those guys last. I don't believe it. I'm sorry. Like, I know they've been winning.
Same boat, but man,
I mean, I can see them finishing second in this division and us not even batting an eye, because I just think that's more realistic. So if that does happen, I think there is a realistic shot that he could be the Hart Trophy winner for sure. It might be worth that sprinkle.
And this would have been one of those seasons if Edmonton didn't have that collapse at the beginning, when they just hovered around that second, third spot of the Pacific Division the whole time. And let's just say McDavid did have the most points in the season, but Kucherov was like 2 shy from it and had this crazy upswing that we're seeing him have. That may be that narrative of giving it to a guy who's deserved it in the past and had kind of the best season he's ever had, but that's not what's going on here. Edmonton was below the San Jose Sharks after they lost them, right?
Yeah.
It was bad. It was bad.
It was one of those things. I mean, it was crazy to see their odds for making the playoffs being still only like plus 200 or so when they were in last place. Maybe, I don't even know if they got to plus 200. It may have still been in the slightly above even.
I mean, we're just past the quarter mark, right, of the season. I guess it's so early still. There's still so much.
It really is
to play, so a lot can happen still.
Yep.
I know DraftKings doesn't have the Jack Adams odds up right now, but it's an interesting race too at the quarter mark of the season here, when you kind of look at the amount of head coaching changes that have been made and the response that some of these head coaches have gotten from their team. So I'm curious if DraftKings puts that market back up, kind of where that stands. So maybe if they do, we'll break it down on another episode, but I think there's some value to be had in that market. Not sure if they're going to put it up kind of live like they do with the Norris, the Calder, etc., but I'd be interested to explore that one.
Talkett's
interesting on that.
Yeah.
So FanDuel does have it open. FanDuel does have it open right now. So just
who's the leader?
Talkett at plus 350. Lavi's in second at 600.
Wow. Who's Edmonton's coach again?
Chris. Can't say his last name.
Knoblauch. Yeah, Knoblauch. Chris Knoblauch.
Yeah.
He's plus 3,000.
That seems like great value.
Yeah.
I mean, the story is
unless your argument is going to be it's just because McDavid.
Yeah.
Kind of goes opposite to what we're saying here.
And, they would love to give it to a good old boy from
the old boys club. Yeah, exactly.
Old boys club. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here. Last game that we'll be talking about for tomorrow. We have Florida at Vancouver. Florida is the road favorite here, minus 115. Over under set at 6.5. Juice to the under, minus 125 in this matchup. Vancouver has just been a powerhouse at home, 11-3-1. Florida, not too bad on the road, 8-5-2. These teams did play earlier this season, back in October, where Vancouver won 5-3 here. Florida has won 3 of their last 4, but is coming off a shutout loss to Seattle in this one. Vancouver has won their last 3 here. Interesting game. I think it's going to be one of the better games for tomorrow, especially here. Betzky, I'll start with you in this one.
I got to ride my boy Carter Verhaeghe still. I know he didn't show up yesterday, but man, oh man. That guy's volume's been insane too. Some of those guys, you just have to take the loss when it happens and move on and just keep on racking it in otherwise, because he's just been phenomenal, even at the 3.5 line. Matthew Tkachuk's been eerily quiet too. I want to say, I'm sorry, I don't have it pulled up right now, but I want to say someone on the Panthers has great history against the Canucks, and I kind of want to say it's him. But
It
correct me
is.
if I'm wrong. It is
16 points in 17 games played, 8 goals, 8 assists.
Yeah.
5 power play points too. Not too bad. So.
Yeah, don't forget. I mean, this is Flames Vancouver, Flames Edmonton rivalries here. So Western Canada. He may still be kind of fond of beating down those teams that he used to just kind of own, and this is definitely one of them. So I may take the plunge. You'd think that you'd get some value on him right now because, again, he's been extremely cold. So maybe sprinkle a goal for him, or gosh, yeah, that power play point's kind of enticing too.
Can you guess how many goals he has to start the year?
Season?
Yeah, 28 games played.
6?
Close, 5.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I would never said that to start the year.
No.
He was such a wagon last year. It's crazy to see that.
Yep.
Franco
kind of makes that goal look a little bit scarier, but
yeah. I mean, what are the odds you're getting? Are you still getting odds that are like plus 150?
Remember last,
plus 160? That's not going to be really worth it unless you're really feeling it. But yeah, it's kind of scary for sure.
Yeah, maybe his shots is the way to go there or something. But
yeah, Franco, any looks for you here?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like both these teams are kind of up and down. It's weird. I was really trying to find power play angles on all these games, and there's like just none really that were good enough to warrant anything. Vancouver's penalty kills towards the bottom, but Florida's power play is just not very good either. So it's like I don't know where to go here. Reinhardt's been good, 5 assists in his last 3. Barkov's been good, 4 points in his last 3. I mean, you're not going to be able to get their points straight or anything like that. But, I mean, DK allows you to parlay points now, so maybe you go there, put those two together, something like that. Do all 3. Add Verhaeghe to it and make it real nice. Quinn Hughes has decent history for shots against them, but, again, like he's been kind of off on his shots as well. It's like I don't know. It's kind of weird the way these teams have been playing. Besser's been hot. His history is okay against them. Maybe that would be where I'd lean on the Vancouver side. Yeah, probably him. I mean, 3 goals in the last 3 is pretty damn good. So I'd probably be where I'd go on Vancouver's side.
Yeah, even JT Miller's shots on goal has been pretty solid as of late too. Just looking at his numbers, I think 3 of his last 4 he hit, and then at home he's hitting 7 of his last 10. So that's kind of where I'm looking in that. And a guy didn't mention,
he was like a wagon at home last season.
Much better at home than he is away. Yeah. And even Forsling too. Obviously, that over 1.5 line is going to be juiced, but he is hitting 8 of his last 9. Which is pretty solid. And the attempts have been there too. It's not your traditional 3-4 to get that 2 shots on goal. It's up to 5 and 6 and even at some points too. So that's one of the looks I like. Probably be a parlay piece tomorrow though. I don't think you're going to be able to get that line anywhere near 130, 120. So that's all I have.
There's a revenge angle.
Yes.
Probably a pretty bitter revenge angle.
That's a good point.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
OEL. Yep.
Who man
I'm losing my touch.
Hated it when he got moved from Arizona to Vancouver, and it seemed like he hated it in Vancouver. I don't know if it was because the media or the expectations. Obviously, he had that huge contract. He's playing so much better this season too. It's been fun watching him kind of have a little bit of a resurgence, and he may want to bring it a little bit.
That's a good point. It's a good point for sure. Any final thoughts here? Any other games, kind of targets that you had for tomorrow?
No, I think that's all for me. I'll probably be hitting OEL because I feel like he's going to be shooting at least if they give us a shot prop, which who knows if they're going to give us that or not. But I like that.
Yeah,
angle.
You'll have to go.
It's one of those ones.
You have to go Easter egg hunting to try to find any of his props. But if you see them, it may be worth it.
Hey man, screw it. In situations like that, if they're not going to give me anything, I'll take his goal. Because he's going to be like plus 1,200 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, if you cash that, you just laugh at the books because they didn't give you anything better.
That you would have probably taken. And
Yep.
there was the other day where they didn't give Vince Dunn props. And it was like his home record was great. He was playing like some team that was like allowing a ton of shots to defensemen, and then he like didn't get his shot or point. And it was like, sweet, thanks guys, saved us from ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah. The one line that I had was Seattle Kraken minus 238 tomorrow against Chicago, and it was a little bit interesting here. I mean, Seattle is obviously on paper a much better team than Chicago, but they haven't shown really much this year at all. And while Chicago is not necessarily a team that you're going to want to back traditionally, I don't hate their puck line in that matchup at plus 1.5. So that was the only other thing that I was looking at. But Betzky, any other things, or you all set?
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right. You guys want to shout out your socials one last time?
Sure. I'm Gretzky Betzky's on Twitter.
And Franco the Banker on Twitter.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at Gator Betting and our podcast Expected Bets 4 at Expected Bets 4. Keep it simple enough. We appreciate everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you guys